Hello again. This is Tessa Keogh, and I feel like we're becoming good friends as I spend a bit of time with you, hopefully, each day during Family History Month. For those of you who've been watching each day, and especially those of you who leave comments, thanks so much. To those of you who've recently stumbled upon the Legacy Virtual Users Group community and/or my YouTube channel, Tessa Watch, and are busily catching up with our month-long series of videos, no worries. Take your time. Our posts at the Legacy Virtual Users Group community remain available 24/7, and my videos and our monthly hangouts are also always available. So relax and watch on your own time and whenever your schedule permits. If anything is unclear or you have a suggestion for a feature that you'd like to learn more about, please post in our Legacy Virtual Users Group community and we'll add it to the list. Or why not try your hand at sharing some knowledge with the rest of us? Today, we're going to focus on occupations. This is one of those events or facts in legacy that we should all be taking advantage of. It's an opportunity to put meat on the bones of our ancestors and make them come alive. When we share the story of our family members, we need to remember that a large part of their day and their lives was taken up by what they were doing. And for most of our ancestors, they were working. Some in the home, some on the farm, and many outside the home. Following the trajectory of their lifetime employment helps us learn more about them, put them in their place, so to speak. Did they start out working on the family farm and then after graduating from high school start working at jobs that changed over time? Or did they take on the family business, which was the family farm? Did an individual move up or down in socioeconomic status over time? Did being able to take advantage of the GI Bill or being the first one in a family to go to college make a significant impact on future generations? Did the individual's lifetime career in the military change the path of his or her children's lives, perhaps because of their travel or that they learned languages or even the international flavor of their growing up? Remember that the benefits of the GI Bill included low-cost mortgages, low-cost loans to start a business, as well as educational benefits to attend university or vocational school. Millions of veterans used the GI Bill for education benefits to attend colleges and universities, and went on to occupations that their parents never even dreamed of. Looking back in time, did being able to make an application for a homestead encourage any of your ancestors to become farmers or ranchers? Did anyone in your family dramatically change their occupation, either on a whim or as part of a concerted plan? Perhaps you have someone who became a minister after years of being a salesman. Actually, that person would just be selling a different product now, wouldn't they? Do the occupations that show up in your family over the decades have a commonality? Does everyone go into the family business or a particular type of occupation? Do you have a lot of teachers, lawyers, plumbers, or firefighters in your family? And while we're at it, did any of your ancestors move in furtherance of their occupation? Perhaps they changed companies or locations. Have you learned anything about the companies or the organizations that any of your ancestors worked for? Let's spend a little time today discussing what many of our ancestors spent 8 hours a day for at least 45 years doing, working. And that's at least 90,000 hours in the course of an average lifetime. So let's honor their efforts and our own by including occupations, both paid and unpaid work, in our legacy databases. So, where are we going to find out more information about our ancestors' occupations? Well, a few ideas include the federal and state census population schedules in the United States, which list occupations, and certain farm schedules can provide you with detailed information about your ancestors' farms. City directories oftentimes have employment as well as residence information. Draft registration forms gave type of employment as well as the name and address of the employer. Plat records provide information about farms and businesses, and probate records will show us when someone's leaving their farm or their business property to heirs. There are several other places to look, but these should get you started. So, how are we going to put this occupation information into our legacy databases? Well, in the first instance, let's take a look at the event definition. It's found in the View ribbon by clicking on Master Lists. In the Master Event Definition list, we type in occupation, and this is one of the standard or default choices, and then click Edit. The Add Edit dialog box opens up, and as you can see, there's lots you can do here, or you can just leave it as the default. Also note that there are two tabs. Event Sentences is shown here. Now, I can never leave well enough alone, so one thing I always do is change the name of the default of the full name of the individual to the first name of the individual. And that's just a little bit more personal, much less formal or stilted when you read it in the chronology or reports. Another change I make is to include the description in lowercase, again, so it reads less stilted. The second tab is Rules for those sharing this event, and you can make changes and adds here. I don't use shared events, or at least I don't use them yet, so I haven't really played with this tab. Now let's focus on one individual and see what we can find, what to do with it once we find it, and some resources I used to learn more about an occupation and a company. Today we're going to focus on my Norwegian great-grandmother, Josephine Erickson. Josephine was born in Minnesota to parents who had left Norway in 1865. 4 of Josephine's siblings were born in Norway, and another 2 were born in Minnesota. Josephine was the 7th and the baby of the family. I used the city directories for Minneapolis, and here I'll give a shout out to the Hennepin County Central Library in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was able to find Josephine living with her oldest sister's family, and this was after the death of her mother. And then later I found her with another one of her sister's families. She's employed, and I've bolded the occupation, as a machine operator in 1893 to 1895 at Patterson and Stevenson. In 1896, Josephine is a furrier at Patterson and Stevenson, and in 1897 to 1899, she's employed as a seamstress at the same company. When I add the event, here an occupation, I fill in the description section with the occupation title as well as the company, and I add the date and the place. In the Notes section, I include whatever additional information I can find. That could include the address of the company, the type of work, perhaps a photograph or drawing. It's great if you can include advertisements or historical maps so you know where the company was located and what was nearby. That way, you can determine the distance traveled to get to work, the area of town your ancestor worked in, and anything that will give you a better picture of what your ancestor did and how they lived and worked. And when it's filled in, remember that you can always hover over your events to get a little bit of the information. So, how do you find out more information? You knew I was going to tell you to Google it, didn't you? Actually, whatever search engines you use, and always use more than one, just check it out. Here, my search was for Patterson and Stevenson in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 1900s. One of the Google results tells me a little bit more about one of the principals in Patterson and Stevenson. And here, as I mentioned, is one of my favorite places, both online and even better if you can check out their beautiful central library. As you can see, city directories are available online at the Hennepin County Library. Choosing a particular Minneapolis city directory, as you can see, I can browse or get right to work because they're searchable. By searching the keyword Patterson, I can bring up not only the advertisements, but also anyone with the name of Patterson. And keep in mind, this same thing would work for the surname Erickson. Now, I've found Josephine in several of the city directories, and here is just one example. She's listed as a furrier, and her father Petter is listed farther on as a carpenter. Her brother-in-law Alfred Swanson is also included as a bank teller. And if the company your ancestor worked for is important or successful or knew the value of advertising, you might just find an excellent look at where they worked. Patterson and Stevenson could afford a full-page advertisement, and from it I have the names of the principals, the address, the type of work they did, and a sweet drawing. I think I can almost see Josephine toiling away at this jobbers and manufacturers of fur goods, gloves and mittens, hats, caps, etc. And this must be the etc. roller awnings. Although I knew what a seamstress did, I wasn't so sure about a furrier. Again, I Googled it to learn more about it. And with the address that I took from the city directory advertisement, I looked for historical maps of Minneapolis in the time frame of 1896. And I can not only find historical maps, but I can also see if the address exists today. Google Maps in Street View. And I can take a walk with the little yellow man. And to learn a little bit about the history of the fur industry, why not? You guessed it, Google it. All this information helps me gain a bit more knowledge about my great-grandmother's occupation as a machine operator, furrier, and seamstress for Patterson and Stevenson in the late 1890s. Have you found any interesting or unusual occupations among your ancestors? What do you do to find out about occupations? Why not share your suggestions with us at the Legacy Virtual Users Group community at Google+. Thanks for joining us each day during the month of October as we celebrate Family History Month by using the letters of the alphabet to learn more about our legacy software and features. I'll see you back here tomorrow for the fourth in our series on e-learning. It's all about more resources.